San Francisco. Head north across the bay, across the Golden Gate, and into wine country. There'll be no whining here. This is one of our favorite places to come. It's Sonoma. And at the ready, not just the young drivers in the field, not just the champions, but every driver in this race has never raced on the Sonoma that you are about to see. It's a whole new deal for NASCAR's best. And the only two drivers I know that have ever raced on this course configuration with the carousel are standing to my left. Darrell Waltrip and Jeff Gordon. The carousel is back for the first time in 20 years. What's it going to be like?
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
We have the same amount of wins on this track. No, it's going to be a challenge. I mean, the carousel was always, it's fun from a driver's perspective, but it's also very, very difficult. You overcook that turn, getting in the carousel, getting into that left-hander, you're going to get in big trouble, and I think we're going to see that quite often right here early on.
Yeah, I mean, this track's always had a lot of challenges, just being, you know, the road course it was. But this has added a half a mile to this racetrack. Yeah. But it's added 3 unique turns and braking zones. And I mean, I think right now a lot of anxiousness for these drivers down the garage areas. They're getting ready to make these laps.
So here's the course we raced last year. Pay attention to that big hole between turn 4 and turn 7. Because this is the course we will race this year. The chute is gone. The runoff area with a quick right left before the wall, that's gone. You come down into this carousel, a blind rise, a sharp corner with an apex you can't see till you get there. And there, where the groove is in dark on the asphalt, that's the new turn 4. Well, it's the old turn 4, but that's the turn 4 we're using.
You mean those little cones is all they put there today? Well, I don't know about that.
How long do you think those cones are going to stay there in this practice?
You can go stand there with a flag if you want to. All right, let's check in with Regan Smith.
Well, Mike, you guys talk about that new course. This garage is filled with drivers eager to get out there and experience it for the first time. But one team with a little bit different strategy today for practice is the one behind me of Jimmy Johnson. These guys said we've got more time on the track than we have tires, so they're going to wait just a few minutes to go out there before they put this race car on the track. Everybody else, they're all strapped in, getting ready to go. The good news is, though, Jimmy is perhaps the only driver in this field that has actually hit that course way back in the early 90s when he was 15 years old. Jimmy drove a Formula-style car around the course that we're going to run today. He does have a little bit of experience on it. Matt?
Well, Regan, when you look at the importance level and the intensity, certainly running high during this first practice session, and Denny Hamlin put it best in just a few moments ago. He said everybody has data. They can break down segments in every corner, but what we don't have really is real time on the traditional course here at Sonoma. He said this practice session, the importance is going to be trying to gather as much data as you can, so that way you can see if it backs up to all that sim work, and then during the break you analyze it, you overanalyze it, you fine-tune it, and then you get ready for final practice. Mike?
They're about to attack a course they've never seen before with 3, not 2 blind rises.
Am I in that car?
Maybe. The track is open for an hour and 25 minutes of DW.
Look at that. We may come face to face with somebody today.
Well, thanks to David Reagan and Front Row Motorsports.
Very nice. Thank you,
never
guys.
drove the 38, but a couple of car numbers that you have wheeled around here are represented. There's the 17.
Oh, that's good looking right there.
Nice piece.
That brings back some memories.
It really does. I swear, I think I ought to be in that car.
Thanks, Darrell. And now let's go in the Wayback Machine.
Oh yeah.
Because you started your Cup career in the 95.
In the 95, and the first time I ran that car was 1972 down at Talladega, and 95 was not the number of choice; it's the number that they gave me. And eventually we went to 17, but I love that car.
Oh, already one.
I knew that wasn't going to take long.
Well, the sweepstakes is over early. Who would be the first off-course excursion? Give it to Bubba Wallace.
First, not the last. I think you have blind corners. You have places where you can wheel hop, elevation changes you see right here. Bubba Wallace, this is actually coming over this crest into the carousel. So many new areas for these drivers to have to learn, and so many new places where they can make mistakes.
Yeah, Bubba's going to have to learn that this track is paved. You're going to have to get up on that paved part if you want to do good.
And then here's coming into the hard braking long straightaway into turn 7. What I like about this too, I mean, it's certainly going to make some great passing zones, but now you have this straight shot into the S's where they're going to be carrying a lot more speed going into the S's, so it changes this track in so many ways more than you would imagine.
Jeff, what I liked about this course, I love the carousel. I love that left-hand turn. Because quite honestly, when we first started, it was the only turn on the track that felt normal. You know, you could come up over that hill. We worked really hard on getting our car to rotate and roll through that carousel. And if you got through there better than anybody else, you made good time around this racetrack.
Absolutely.
So there's 4. Here's turn 5. Now there's a blind rise right there, and when you come over that rise, you got to hunt for the apex for the carousel.
You better be ready.
Well, the one nice thing about that entry, even though it's blind, is you don't have to be perfectly positioned. You can be a little bit off of the bottom, but boy, you better have a car that cuts and turns and gets up next to the curb on the exit of that carousel, or you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, I just wonder, Jeff, and you've talked to a lot of these guys, maybe the Henry guys particularly, if it's changed the setup of the car at all. If you would change the car any for that particular part of the racetrack, being able to run that carousel a little bit better than anybody else.
Well, actually, let's bring Larry McReynolds in, because I know he has some information. Now that carousel being such a big, long left-hander, and we didn't have that before, I would have a feeling that the question or the answer is yes. Larry?
Yeah, DW, I talked to a couple of crew chiefs this morning. They said over the last number of years, the O course, they focused everything on turning to the right. They kind of just got through the left-hander. But they said, especially with this carousel being a long sweeping left hand, they've kind of focused everything aero-wise and chassis-wise to turning to the left, almost like you would a short track.
And Larry, that's exactly what we used to do when we came here. We used to focus on that carousel because it was such a big part of the track.
So here we're going into turn 3, a little downhill left-hander, come up over this crest. That's 3A. Use a little bit of that curb on the right. Takes you all the way out. Now this is where the new section, now this is fascinating to me. I didn't think we were going to be able to see any passes going into turn 4, but we just saw Martin Truex Jr. do that. Here's a fast kink turn 5.
Oh, yeah.
And then look at this. You're absolutely blind coming over this crest.
And if you overcook it and come over that hill a little too hot, you've got a little bit of a runoff room, but not much.
And you can hear how much he's playing with the throttle, not able to get wide open through the carousel as he comes downhill. And now it's back uphill, hard braking into turn 7.
And this is a hairpin, like turn 11. It's just one big, long right turn.
Well, and going back to what Larry McReynolds was talking about, if you're going to set your car up to try to turn left more significantly than right, then when you get to that slow right-hander in turn 11, turn 7, you're going to have a serious problem trying to make that speed, get the car rotating.
I think turn 7 is going to be like, excuse me.
So we come to turn 10, 139 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And now the run down to turn 11, this is where a lot of the passing and some of the bashing takes place.
You go from one of the fastest parts of this racetrack to one of the slowest parts of the racetrack.
35 miles an hour in the middle of turn 11.
Just coming up the hill here, right up to the top of turn 2 right here.
Blind rise.
But little right-hander. This is a little quick part of the track. A real big dip right here. Might come down. Right here where you go downhill, that's a real big dip. You kind of throw the car in there and then it kicks back to the left. You throw it back to the right, and then you come over that, and that's blind right there. It's hard to see. And then you got this turn right in front of you.
And no brake markers, if you notice. This racetrack is notorious for not having any brake markers. Is one of the additional challenges to trying to get around this racetrack. The only brake markers that I know of on this track is going into that new turn 7 braking zone.
The brake marker for me was always the guy in front of me.
Well, now NASCAR set out brake markers, and then Jeff, you took a ride in the base car.
I did, and so we're going into this zone, and look, they have 1, 2, 3, and I told them, I said, I don't think they can even get to the 3 marker. So I don't know if they've moved them yet, but they're planning to move those back a good bit so that these drivers do have a better reference.
Now, Mike, there's a lot of guys that might go around this track and come in with that sort of a recommendation. I say, what the heck does he know? But with this guy right here, he knows.
Well, and somebody else that knows is at the top of the board right now, road racer Michael McDowell.
All right. Welcome back to Sonoma. Long practice session where drivers get used to turning right and to make sure they have sufficient driver comfort for turning left and right.
And because this track used to primarily be right-hand turns, you would almost tilt your seat to the right to get your body loaded and feeling natural in the car. But now it's an equal amount of lefts and rights, and I think you're probably going to have to not only adjust your head support like Kyle Busch was doing, but also how you level the seat.
Matt?
Mike, some drivers, they do level that seat and stand it straight up, but for Kyle Busch, it's still tilted like when he competes on the intermediate racetracks. You saw Todd Foster, the interior specialist, putting in padding shims, trying to shim up that headrest area. Now he does use the same 15-inch wheel that he competes with at all the other racetracks. When you go through the garage, and Jeff, you can touch on this even more, you'll see some guys go to the 14-inch wheel here at Sonoma.
Yeah, over the years, the steering wheels have been getting smaller and smaller, more front downforce, more grip in these cars. You almost want them to drive similar to a go-kart, so they're using a smaller wheel, a smaller box, steering boxes.
Well, now that's
Castle going off.
Landon trying to take an early apex there at turn 4, and that's how you run on a racetrack.
Yeah, you saw right there where Chase Elliott also goes wide. And this again, I go back to finding a marker of where to slow the car down. Of course, they're trying to find out where the grip level is there too, but there's so few markers to know when to lift and how much brake to use, where to get on the brakes. See the car rolling over on that right rear coming off of the carousel for Chase Elliott.
Mike, I call these early laps driver orientation. And you really have to work hard here to find those spots that Jeff Porter's talking about.
Thank you, William Byron. In the 24, not Chase Elliott.
There are those brake markers on the left, the 3, 2, 1, down into the braking zone. And you see it's just a hairpin to the right.
Obviously some different line choices, trying to check to see where there's some grip, where you can make up some time there or make a pass.
A lot of action in that turn, I can tell you right now. I see some noses getting snipped off there.
Well, I think one thing's for sure, turn 7 always created action, even old layout. It's going to create more action, or just as much this time around.
So turn 11, another very, very tight hairpin. So now one at each end of the course. Well, William Byron, despite having an off-course excursion, he is the top of the board.
I'm so curious to know how everybody preps for a different layout like this and coming to the new challenges, whether they come out here and get some lap times. Heard about some teams maybe sending their drivers here to drive the school cars and the things that they have, or getting on a simulator. William Byron being at the top, we know how much he loves computers and simulation. I wonder how much of that has helped him get ready for this weekend.
Well, the track record said 97 by Mark Martin, by the way, won that race. 92.807 miles an hour, 97.751. So Byron is already a tick under what the old track record was, which with the cars we have today, that doesn't surprise me.
Now here's something that I really like. That's how you make a pass with this carousel. You've got to hug that inside. The carousel makes you want to rush the throttle. You think the car's going to stick, and you go to the throttle, and the nose takes off. And if you get off that line, it's going to cost you not just one position like you did here, but in the race, it could cost you a lot more than that.
I just think, Mike, again, we just reiterate how important working that carousel is going to be. That is a fast turn, and you need a lot of grip. You need to be able to cut that and do like Joey Logano did, come off that carousel right on the bottom of the racetrack to make passes.
Now, what about here coming down through the S's? It doesn't look like there's any good passing opportunities there.
Well, there isn't necessarily. This is a tight part of the racetrack. A lot of times you just bide your time here waiting for one of those good passing zones. But when the road racers I've kind of ridden around here with and talked to, you try to straighten the S's out. And it's all with positioning. If you get offline in the first part of the S, it throws you offline all the way through the S's. So you want to be in the right spot at the right time, right place, so you can straighten those S's out and make good time.
And to me, the S's are just building the momentum for coming to this section we just went through, turn 11, because that's where you can really make a pass. So if you could gain momentum on a car in front of you and just make a little bit up in each one of those left rights through the S's, you're going to get to the rear bumper of that car to make that pass at 11.
You set them up, Mike. There's a place where you set them up for that passing zone.
Turn 11, the hairpin at Sonoma, one of two, turn 7 and 11. Let's give you a different look at Sonoma and show you where they are running, and we'll pick out a couple trouble spots.
Yeah, so I mean, you can see turn 1, you know, all that's basically the same as it was, but that's a blind crest to that right-hand turn there that a lot of teams, you know, our drivers will have some difficulty getting off the exit. They're getting position. Then you go over 3A, another blind crest as you come off of that corner. But where we're seeing trouble already begin is turn 4. That is a downhill short shoot before you make the right. And it looks like a lot of people are just not able to get the car slowed down there. Of course, then you come through 5, come over another blind crest into the carousel. And I think, like you said, DW, that carousel is going to be the game changer of how you get your car working there. Be patient with the throttle, get positioned to the curb on the exit there, and then come all the way up to that braking zone. That straight shot into turn 7. Yeah, now a hairpin turn.
I think one reason we're having trouble at turn 4 is because we're not used to making that turn. We're used to going down that hill a little further and then making the right turn. So I think that's why guys are getting a little bit of trouble there. I think it's driver orientation, I like to call it. Once they figure out the course and the layout, they'll be able to adjust their driving style a little bit and get probably pick up some significant time.
You could see right there Jimmy Johnson, this hand gestures, and you know, you think of your hand. The back of your hand is the back of the car. Your fingers, at the tip of your fingers, is the front of the car. So as he's making those gestures, that's the back of the car is sinking into the racetrack, maybe compressing somewhere that he doesn't like.
Don't you think, Jeff, the way that the track used to be, you wanted the back of that car to sink. You wanted to get that good forward bite up off those tight turns. Now, I think you've got to hold that back end up and make it through that carousel with carrying a lot more speed through there.
Yeah, I think now the carousel, that's going to hurt you rolling through the carousel, that car that's soft with the rear grip that you need for the launch off of some of these corners.
So Joey Logano is now fastest. Here is the second quickest car. Regan?
Well, Mike, you guys alluded earlier in the show about William Byron and his use of iRacing and simulator technology, but let's not forget he also has a driver coach in Max Pappas, who has a lot of laps around the Sonoma racecourse. He went around with Max earlier today to pick out points through that new section of the racetrack and through the carousel to pick out points and marks that he can use to be able to find where he needed that race car to be on the track. So certainly had to be a little bit of an assistance to him there, having somebody that's a veteran at this racetrack.
Yeah, great resource to have for William Byron to have Max Pappas. I mean, he's you know, not only a guy who's had a lot of experience road racing, but road racing in a big heavy stock car in NASCAR.
You know, Jeff, I don't know, I might have been a little bit weird, but I went by the sound of the engine. I kind of knew if I went too far because the engine got a different pitch. I kind of knew once I figured out my gear and I had to get the car in the right gear and they're doing, you know, in the gear that I need to be in. I just knew that when the engine gets to a certain level, RPM, I heard it, I felt it, I knew it was time to back off. I knew if I went further in that, I was probably going to get in big trouble. I wasn't good enough, I guess, to look around and find markers, unless they were on the track. But looking off to the right or the left, I just wasn't real good at that.
But I do think that's certainly, when I think back to my success that I had here in Sonoma, this is a real finesse and feel type of racetrack where you don't use the markers because they don't exist. And also the grip level is so low here that, you know, for you to attack the racetrack, in some of the braking zones, over some of the curbs like we just saw with Alex Bowman, but for the most part, this is a track that's more about patience and saving tires, and I thought that really suited me, and I think that's what I'm going to be curious to see who that suits this weekend.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I think that we see now, this is a much more diverse track, I think, because you've got turns, like 35 miles an hour down here at turn 11, and we got these huge elevation changes that we didn't have to deal with in the past. And now you've got this incredibly fast carousel left-hander that you've got to get through there with some speed. So I think it changes the way you run this track.
Now remember, the blind rises are turn 2, turn 3A, and coming to turn 6. That's where you have to aim and point the car somewhere when you're not exactly sure where it's going to end up, because you've got to make that turn before you see where the car lands.
And I would even maybe add, Mike, turn 7, that's an uphill braking zone that, yeah, you can see the braking zone and the markers that are there, but you can't see the apex of the corner.
Yeah, Mike, I guess it doesn't change the way you, I shouldn't say the way you drive. It's the way you're going to set your car up for this racetrack. I think there's got to be some adjustments made to your setup to complement that carousel.
Paul Menard, Ryan Preece. Preece is going to run the K&N race because he is one of 6 drivers who have never raced Sonoma. The 3 rookies, and then there are 3 other drivers who have experience but not on this racetrack. So he's going to gain some valuable laps here in K&N, as is Austin Dillon and Daniel Hemrick.
I think Kevin Harvick may be the only guy in the field that's actually ran the carousel part of the racetrack. Wow.
Now, Daniel Hemrick ran the Roval last year at Charlotte, so these 3 drivers, Preece, Tift, and Haley, are making their first road course start in the Cup Series this weekend. Historically, drivers finishing in the top 10 in their very first road course start. Well, in the 70s, almost 20 drivers were able to do it. Almost 10 in the 80s. Nobody in this decade has finished top 10 in their first road course start. Wow.
I can tell you that the only one that's happy or wish that they could go back to the old course are those rookies that are here that have never run on a road course. I'll never forget my rookie year here at this layout. I ended up in the tire barriers up on my side. I mean, it was, I was completely lost. I just had no clue where I needed to be on the track.
Well, I'm sorry to say neither one of you were part of that bar graph, because Jeff, you finished 11th in your first road course start, and Darrell?
Yeah.
21st. That would have been Riverside, California.
I must have had some mechanical issue.
You must have.
I tell you what, this place has been tough on Rookie of the Year contenders, and you think about our Rookie of the Year contenders coming in here, which would be Hemrick, Preece, and Matt Tiff. The last 9 Sonoma races, the best finish for a Rookie of the Year contender, 16th.
Wow.
One thing we don't talk about a whole lot anymore are ringers. You know, road course specialists that come in here and think they're going to steal the big prize. It just never it happened. I think in my lifetime, one time.
So the Orange Cone put out on Twitter, said, who's the best road course driver ever in NASCAR? And I, within minutes, tweeted back, Dan Gurney, case closed. 9 road course starts, 3 poles, 5 victories. Nobody going to get close to that.
No, that's a pretty amazing record.
And you kind of wish that a lot of it is the rules, the way that it works when you're trying to run for a championship and having the driver in the car for the whole year. But it was fun when guys like Tommy Kendall and some of these road racers, Ron Fellows, could come and really show guys their skill set.
Yeah,
it was and those guys were serious competitors.
Scott Pruitt, he was
Scott Pruitt,
a nice job a few times.
I think Juan Pablo Montoya was the first guy that really had a full-time ride that was an expert at road racing.
Yeah.
Maybe Ambrose as well.
I love to watch Ambrose. I thought Ambrose was, in my opinion, one of the best road racers overall that I'd ever gotten to, that I ever watched. I thought he was pretty darn good.
Boy, he could hustle a car, couldn't he?
He could. He could get a lot out of it.
Regan.
Well, guys, something we haven't talked a lot about this year is a new tow strap that's allowed on these race cars. You see it right here on the 13 car of Ty Dillon. There's a few cars up and down pit road that are running this weekend. If they do happen to get off into the dirt or the sand, they don't want the drivers getting out of the race car because of the penalty that comes with it. So they got that tow strap on there. They can pull them out of the sand and they can get back going again. Something pretty cool this year.
Regan, how many cars have them? Because I would think you come to a road course, that would be a must.
I expected to see more than what we're seeing right now, Mike. I'm going to have to count them all up, but I've seen it on basically 3 cars so far. I'll get you a report and let you know exactly how many.
Well, there are 3 that have them. I can think of about 30, some of about half of which might wish they had them.
I thought he was saying TOE, and I said, we've been running tow straps forever.
Yeah, what's that about?
Well, the one thing about this track is there's not a lot of sand and gravel pits that you see on typical road courses when on the runoff. You can see here it's very dry, and there's a lot of grass and dirt out there. So I think that if you do get off course, you still have a good chance of getting back on course, not necessarily needing that toe strap.
I think we're watching Denny Hamlin here, and he's a really, really super good road racer. And by the way, Mike, that was a great presentation this morning FedEx made of the 11 car. They're going to run down in Darlington in a few weeks. But you heard Denny getting to the carousel there and how gentle he was on the throttle. He didn't just jump back in it. Really had to work hard to get that thing to accelerate straight up off the corner. And he's all over those S's, you know, trying to straighten those turns out.
What a curb climber he is, right?
Man.
Oh, yeah. He's good at this.
I do think, as we were talking earlier about certain tracks that fit your driving style, I think this does fit Denny Hamlin's driving style. He's a finesse driver. He works really hard to get the car pointed straight and drive off of corners. You know how good he is at Martinsville, and he does that well. I think that plays out really well here at Sonoma also.
I hear Tony Stewart had a heck of a battle here, what, a couple years ago?
Oh, man, that was wild. They're both wheel hopping.
They're all over each other. It was crazy.
Up and downhill and all around. Cup practice at Sonoma on the long course with the carousel. 48 minutes to go. First of 2 practice sessions. A lot of tributes to Darrell Waltrip, winding up a 19-year broadcast career and more than half a century in this sport. It winds up this weekend. There have been tributes and gifts already. There are going to be more to come. And it's I'm glad you got your whole family out here to enjoy this weekend with you. There are just so many people that want to honor you and pay tribute to what you meant to this sport.
Well, it's funny you say that, Mike, because we have dinner together a lot, and I'll be telling the girls something about that happened in racing or something I did when I had my race team, and you know what they'll say to me? Yeah, we don't want to hear that. that does not apply. So.
Watching David Reagan with that Darrell tribute on the hood. What's he think of his car here?
But then the further I get going down the hill, the more load it transfers to the right front, I lose all my leverage.
Well, he must be pretty happy he's in fifth.
Like it's on a be an issue, but I feel really good through turn 1 and 2.
We're not hearing it.
Yeah, through turn.
All right, sorry. I guess you folks were hearing that at home. And
good.
Would you mind telling us what he said?
What did he say?
We'll get that fixed.
He's got to be pretty happy. Looking at the lap times. Somebody's storm. Not only did they drop some left sides on, they threw a lot of dirt and gravel back on the racetrack.
And it's not unusual right here, you know, coming into this fast turn through the S's.
Was blame JJ.
Well, we know Jimmy knows how to dirt track a little bit here, so looks like he went off and came back on.
Testing. You just got to find out where the limits are.
We're going to show you this here at turn 10, one of the fastest corners of the course.
Yes, sir.
Ooh,
buddy.
Just a little. Just a little.
How about if we ride and listen?
Well, you just wonder how much Eric Almirola, who's right in front of him, maybe took a little bit of air off. That's a very fast right-hander in turn 10 that Jimmy Johnson was coming through. And you can tell he's just trying to get into that throttle to hope he could gain on Eric Almirola to outbrake him into turn 11. Maybe got a little greedy with that throttle.
But you know what? I like getting in that throttle because that you're digging forward, keeping that car out of trouble. That's pretty cool. Great shot right here, guys. Up on those curves, trying to straighten those S's out, and right here you nail it. Not for long, but
Carry third here.
Stay in third.
Turn 10.
Up on the curve.
This is that section where he went off before.
Out in the dirt. And away we go.
More tidy. Ooh, little wheel hop right there as he got into the brakes. And there's a dip in the racetrack right there. And if you get on the brakes a little too hard in that section, those rear tires will start to hop on you.
I just like how much better, it just tells me how much better the equipment is, Mike, because when we wheel hopped, it wasn't long till we were changing the gear. It usually would knock the tooth off the ring gear, or it would mess up something in the gearbox, and we'd have to change something, you know, to repair the damage. Now they seem to be able to get away with doing quite a bit of wheel hopping.
coming to what I think is the most difficult part of this course, and that's 3A right here. You hit this apex, and if you're carrying too much speed, you go right off the track.
Well, and you can't see.
That's what I mean.
You're coming up over the top of that hill blind.
Here's another one down through 5. You're going to come out of turn 5 here. You're headed for the carousel. And right here, you're looking into space.
You could tell that I can tell that Jimmy's, they're searching a little bit for the transmission and gear, because you can hear him almost easing out of the throttle, where maybe he's turning a little bit too much RPM, changing gears in some sections that I don't think they anticipated. I wouldn't be surprised there's a potential, some gear changes that they do in the transmission after this practice.
Let's listen through the S's.
He actually went, I believe, up to 3rd gear going into the S's. Very violent ride here, because you're using those curves so much left to right, and you need those curves to turn the car in so many sections, and that compresses under braking. It takes a lot out of your body to run a lap around this track.
We'll have Darrell singing at the hop here in a minute, because they are curb hopping in Northern California.
Go to the hop, baby. Woo!
Here's how you make the pass to win at Sonoma. That's Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, what you do is you put a lot of pressure on that driver leading, force him into making a mistake, and that's exactly what Dale Earnhardt did. He was on the rear bumper of Mark Martin coming into the carousel over that crest. Mark got in there a little hot, on the brakes too hard, wheel hopped, opened up the door for Dale Earnhardt to win that race.
You know how many laps he led that day?
2.
Yep.
But you know what? Anytime Dale Earnhardt was in my rearview mirror, I always seemed to overdrive the next corner.
And you know how I knew what happened there with Mark? Because I had a bird's eye view of it. I was sitting in 3rd position. I was hoping that they are both going to get racing one another, and I might sneak a win out.
What are the odds on that bumper cam lasting the whole day on Sunday, especially when you hear whose car it's on? It's the 18.
Well, I'm more worried about that splitter hitting the racetrack here, going through 1 up to turn 2. As low as this camera angle is, might knock that camera right off there.
Now, Mike, I always like to watch his hands. Any driver really, but it's amazing to me how little they work. I mean, I know they tweak on the wheel, but how little they turn the wheel. Probably what, Jeff, got an 8-to-1 steering box here at this racetrack?
I would say probably. Some guys might even try 6-to-1.
With a little smaller steering wheel, so you don't have to really get up on top of the wheel the way we did. But it's amazing how well these cars handle and how little you have to turn them to get the results you want.
Now that paint has some grip to it when you get the right sides, so it's really important to try to get those right sides on that paint and hook that corner to rotate and roll through there to get straight off for the exit.
It's been a while since I drove a car, but I remember we had the big 15-inch wheel on the car, and the guy said, you need to try a small wheel. Oh, I said, I ain't never going to do that. I wouldn't like that. That's terrible. I said, I wouldn't do that. We went to the 13-inch wheel. I said, wow, that is a way to go, guys. That might be out of a bus right there, that one. That's a pretty good-sized wheel that Harvick's still running. That's the old standard steering wheel.
Here's Matt.
Now, Mike, if you look this morning, you almost needed to take a number with all the drivers that were in line to take the pace car out. You had Busch, Boyer, Larson, Almirola, on and on, but you also had Timmy Fedewa, Kevin Harvick's spotter, because he wanted to be able to visually see what Harvick would be experiencing with all the elevation changes and the lefts and the rights. He's up on top of the hill by the water tower. That's where most of the primary spotters are. But because we're adding the longer course here this weekend, instead of having a second spotter, Nick Fazio, like in the past in the media center, they've also added a third. So Nick will be on the media center so he can see the drag strip in turn 10. But they've also got another spotter positioned up in 8A, just trying to better visually pass along the information of what happened on the racetrack. So not only the drivers learning the longer course here, but spotters as well.
Well, so many of those spotters have racing background. Tim Feet is certainly one of them. Here's Max Pappas, who sort of like a driver coach for William Byron, has a lot of road racing experience. So many of those guys, that's valuable information to be able to get out, be a race car driver, be out on track to understand what the different techniques you might need for certain corners and be able to relate that to the drivers they're talking about.
Watch it. Look at this. We're talking about the difference in the drivers. Look how much Kevin Harvick on the left, Kyle Busch on the right. Look at Kyle's hands, and look where they go. And look at Harvick's hand. He goes way over the top of the wheel. That's kind of like old school and more like I learned how to do this in the simulator.
Now looking at this, I would almost wonder if Harvick's wheels are a little bit smaller than Kyle Busch's. Looks like Kyle runs maybe a little bit bigger wheel. He also runs his spokes different, the way he holds his hands on the steering wheel and the level of where it is. Like one of the things I see with Kevin Harvick, he runs his wheel real high. He almost has to look over that steering wheel.
Yeah. So with we got Priest on the left and Jimmy Johnson on the right. And look at Priest, how much he's leaning and bouncing around in that race car.
Did you see his head move when he jumped on the brakes?
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of movement.
I will say Jimmy Johnson's one of those guys, when I look at him inside a car, he looks so comfortable.
Yeah.
Confident in that car.
I think that's the difference, Jeff. I mean, Priest over here looks like he's battling that thing. Jimmy Johnson, on the other hand, he looks like he's out for a Sunday drive.
Well, of course, he is back in the garage area.
Martin Truex.
There's another, you see the shifter post setting up there. Every driver has something a little different they like, Mike. The ball on top of the shifter lever and all those different things are kind of custom fit to the driver.
That was better in the 7 that time. Still more there, though. No more there for me. I felt wrecked in there that deep. It locks the left rear up real late. As soon as I turn the wheel to the right, the left rear slips. I'm sideways going in there.
A whole new challenge for these teams and drivers, that braking zone and turning into that now a hairpin turn 7.
Austin Dillon's had a bit of a rough ride around Sonoma, and there is the result. It's the Midsummer Classic, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, July 9th, only on Fox. Cleveland rocks. That'll be fun. Ryan Blaney, 9th on the speed chart, trying to hustle him down through the S's here.
Car looks pretty good, Mike. I've seen him run a few laps, just kind of watched as much as we can from up here. His car looks pretty solid. Looks like it's doing everything he wants it to do right now.
Very different from the Roval course at Charlotte, where he won last fall.
Well, what's going to be the same is putting yourself in position like he did at the Roval. He was in 3rd place as they came to that final chicane. Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex Jr. got together, took one another out, or Jimmy took both of them out, and the 12 capitalized on it.
So he's right where you were when you were following Dale and Mark in '95.
I was hoping it's going to turn out the way that it turned out between Truex and Johnson. Didn't know. Man, where is Kyle Larson going? That looked like maybe he got into the braking zone really deep, maybe locked up a tire or something, and went wide in turn 7.
He is the pole winner for the last 2 races at Sonoma. So his average starting position of 2.8 is the best all time here.
When he's also on a pretty long run, one of the longest runs I've seen anybody do. So maybe there's some fall off there in his lap times and the grip of those tires. Certainly struggling getting through turn 11. Matt?
Well, Jeff, back here in the garage area, Chase Elliott currently in the 17th position on the board, and he said the car much better on the right-handers, and he's looking over data right now and breaking things down with Alan Gustafson. But it always helps, we've talked about driver coaches, but it also helps when you've got a race-winning road course winner in the family as your dad on the radio.
Doing wrong right here, can you tell? Oh, I really can. I mean, they're taking a white arc into that corner right there. Where are you watching from, Dad? You see anything? Yeah, from the start-finish line to the 2, you're losing a little bit of time coming up this hill. The first lap you did pretty good, but you got away to the right. But then you slowed up a good bit after that. Up the hill for like 1 and 1A or 2. 2. Yeah, I got you.
Mike, you know what I love about Bill? That's Bill Elliott, one of the we heard on the voice on the radio. Bill does a lot of road racing. He does a lot of vintage car racing. He and Ray Abraham, they go to quite a few road races throughout the year. So Bill is, he didn't win a lot on a road course, but he's a very good road racer.
And we don't talk a lot about turn 1. It's looking like a very significant corner, but there is a lot of time that can be lost there, and that's exactly what they were talking about. The car can get on the splitter and really get to hopping and go, you know, lose a lane and lose a lot of speed to position yourself for turn 2.
I believe Bill Elliott got his first win on a road course.
Riverside, California. They almost didn't make the trip, but Benny Parsons arranged sponsorship from Harry Mellon for Bill Elliott's family-owned race car, and he won that day, and the rest is history.
You know why I know he won that day?
Let me guess who was second.
Tim Richmond spun me out coming to get the checkered flag, and then Bill rode by and left us in the mud.
Okay.
Like I said, be in position.
Be in the right spot. I was not.
All right, our tape room, best in the business, has gone back and found out what happened to Mr. Dillon.
Yeah, these tires, you want to run as close to those as possible without hitting them. Unfortunately, that didn't work out so well for Austin Dillon. He moved those tires, and he found out who won.
Keep your chips stacked, but there is the result.
It almost opened that right side of the car up like a can opener.
They don't look that mean, do they? Until you hit them.
Need some crime scene tape right there.
That's right.
But I can tell you, if you get, so that the paint has some grip, but if you can get 6 inches inside where the paint is, there's even more grip. And that's why they run so close and so tight to that those tire barriers.
Now Brad Keselowski is 28th on the speed chart.
He is struggling, man.
Yeah, we were showing Ryan Blaney earlier. He's in the top 10, and I was a little surprised to see Keselowski 28th on our board.
Now, if we were on an oval, it'd be a matter of tenths of a second, but 28th to teammate Joey Logano's fastest laps is 2.1 seconds.
And then, Mike, you can see it. I mean, Brad is just really slow. He's slow around turn 11. Looks like the car is pushy loose up in these tighter turns. They just don't have the car where it needs to be right now for him. See right here, he just kind of looks slow. He can't get back to the throttle. Back of the throttle pretty early right here, trying to hold that thing down on the bottom.
And we've seen him battle with, we were talking about Marcus Ambrose. You know, we've seen him battle with this guy right here on a road course at Watkins Glen before 4 wins. So to me, Brad Keselowski coming into this weekend, I would actually put him as one of the favorites. So obviously struggle a little bit trying to get this number 2 car to work.
Track's way out of the carousel. Yep. You see the map in the bottom left of the screen. Comes up the hill to turn 7.
Well, Jeff, I would just say that it's only Friday. So I bet they figured out. He and Paul were pretty darn good about coming up in the right center.
I agree. You know, turn 7, Jeff, you're talking about it being uphill, but Scott and I have run there in the Lemons car, in the 24-hour Lemons races, and you come up into turn 7, there are no markers at all. Where to turn, where to apex, where the track ends. It's just like a vast skid pad out there with no idea where to go.
Yeah, and that's so challenging to try to hit your marks and get to the apex and do it consistently lap after lap to save the tires, to get the most out of that braking zone. So I think it's going to change every lap throughout this race for these drivers.
So Mike, you say, I missed my marks. You can't say you missed their marks because there aren't any their marks.
All right, 27 minutes to go in the first of 2 practice sessions today. A little more than 24 minutes to go. Ford, Chevy at the top of the board. One of those is Kyle Larson. He has the 2nd fastest lap. He's been on the pole for the last 2 races here, but it probably wasn't this lap.
No, this is into the braking zone to turn 7. We didn't see anything lock up in the front, so I gotta believe maybe he got the rear tires hopping into that braking zone. We already heard earlier on the radio with Martin Truex Jr. talking about, you know, the left rear hopping as you turn in there. So I think that's an area of the track that you can attack. We talk about this track being finesse as we watch Austin Dillon come up through turn 2. And wheel spin and grip is so hard to find here, but there are certain braking zones like turn 7 that I think you're going to want to push and be aggressive with, like we saw with Carl Larson.
See, I think there's some areas on this racetrack where these guys know they can go a little wide, and it's going to cost them time, but there's some runoff room in certain areas, and turn 7 is one of them. Yeah.
I like these last 3 camera positions. Marty Kemper and his folks do a great job of trying to position cameras that show us this elevation change, and you can really see the up and down that you go through getting to the carousel.
And I like this angle here showing this little bit of uphill before this flat turn 7. So anytime that you're braking and it's uphill, you can be more aggressive. When it's downhill, you've got to be more careful and back the entry of the corner up.
But did you see, Jeff, how much runoff room is in turn 7? I mean, you could go in there 3 or 4 wide.
About a week and a half.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge.
Which is totally different. As we come down through the S's, this is the left-hander coming into turn 10, this fast right-hander. So watch as we come into turn 11, to your point, no runoff down in turn 11. You have to be on your marks here and on your game. You cannot over-attack that brake zone.
But the good thing about it, it's so well marked. But I saw Austin Dillon do something there that a lot of road racers do. Made a real late entry into the turn. And all road racers like would always tell me, the problem with you stock car guys, you try to slow the car down with the transmission. We're always trying to gear it down. They do it with the brakes. And they're so good at what we call heel and toe, which is kind of a complicated looking mess if you look down in there at their feet. Because I never could do it. I look like I was storming out a fire. But nonetheless, they were so good, and that's where they make so much time.
Well, the other thing that road racers are so good at is stopping the car in a straight line and then rolling out the brake to let it turn.
Yep.
We on ovals trail brake the car all the way to the center of the corner, something you can't do on these types of flat, very tight radius corners.
So, Mike, I believe you can teach a guy to road race.
Yes.
I believe there's a technique. I believe you can take a guy that's a pretty good driver and you can make him a good road racer by teaching him all the techniques that it takes to get around a road course. Unlike an oval where you either got it or you don't.
I can tell you firsthand, because I love road racing. I love doing it. Oval tracks, I don't. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Talking about some footwork.
Here you go.
Showing you a left foot breaker, which is what most guys, almost all of the field, are probably doing here in today's world.
Now here we have the toe strap.
Yeah, the TOD.
TOD strap.
Not the TOW strap.
One of the reasons why drivers really start going to left foot braking is because the transmission's evolved where you have these straight cut gears. You don't need the clutch. You used to have to use the clutch to do the upshifts, do the downshifts, to match the RPMs with your right foot.
And the equipment, Jeff, is so evolved to where it's solid road racing equipment. And these guys have evolved to learn how to use it.
Listen to this brake zone.
See, he just taps that throttle.
Matches that RPM to the speed of the rear tires.
There's 2 problems with putting this transmission into a street car. One, the straight cut gears, like an old LCM 22, they're going to whine like crazy and drive you crazy. 2, about 1,000 miles, that transmission's all done. It's going to need to get rebuilt.
But it's great for racing.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I remember running ASA cars when they had buffers on them. The quick change gears and the transmission, it would drive you crazy. You couldn't even hear the engine. You couldn't hear the engine for the gears.
Couldn't hear yourself talking to yourself.
Could not hear anything.
There you go. 19 and a half to go. Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney at the top. Left and right turns racing their way around wine country. NASCAR is best having to deal with a new configuration, and the carousel added back into the Sonoma track layout for NASCAR for the first time in 20 years. Here's a look at it, downhill and into it. Catch right there, that little apex that Blaney missed by just about a foot or so. And that'll get you off that corner and all the way down to turn 7.
And it feels so good when you do it right.
Yeah.
I'm with you though, Mike. I love that camera angle. It shows you just how steep that section is entering the carousel. So you come over this blind, so you're just trying to be in the center of the road really to get yourself positioned for the left-hander. So now we're going to come into turn 4. William Byron accelerate out of turn 4. Really fast kick into this right-hander here as it leads you to. There's that blind section, gets flat. Back of the car gets real light. Now you see Truex going downhill through the carousel. It just amazes me. Something that hasn't changed over the years is how late you can get wide open off that carousel.
I'll tell you something else hadn't changed. You better be able to hook the bottom of that turn. You better not push out.
We heard Martin Truex Jr. talking earlier about wheel hop. Got to fix it, got to fix it. I can tell you they haven't fixed it. I heard right there when he checked up out of the throttle, went to the brake, you can hear a little bit of a wheel hop still.
A lot of times the crew can correct that with some shock package, but a lot of times it's the driver that's not matching the gears and the RPM, and it's not him not doing a good job.
Be more aggressive on your blip to match those RPMs. I agree. And also, and maybe bring Larry in on this about the angle of those rear truck arms and pinion angles to try to get drive off to scoot up off the corner. Usually hurts the ability for braking and wheel hop, right, Larry?
Yeah, it's a fine line. We know here at Sonoma, whether old course, new course, it's all about getting drive off the corner. This track, we always do our grip level. On a scale of 1 to 5, this is about a 1 or a -1. So yeah, you can do things with the truck arm angle to help that drive off, but yeah, you've got to find that happy medium between that and not getting in the wheel hop under braking.
Yeah, I think this is one of those tracks there where you as a crew chief can tell the driver can be complaining bitterly about his car. I hate my car. I'm not doing it. It's just not doing anything I want it to do. But you're leading the race and you're better than everybody else. That's all that matters.
Well, Kyle Larson made a 16, 17 lap run, and he lost about 3 to 3.5 seconds over the course of that run.
Well, let's hear about that run, Regan.
Well, he did make that long run. Kyle Larson's already out of the race car. Kyle, we're going to assume that your car's pretty good based on that run and the fact that you're second on the board right now.
I feel okay about it. I just need to get more consistent. I felt like my lap times are kind of up and down just from me making mistakes. So getting used to new sections is tricky, different elevation and stuff. So trying to pick out points to see, when to turn and brake and all that is different. So, but all in all, I felt pretty good about my Cradle and Bank Chevy. Got to get it probably better, for long run stuff. I feel like I burnt the rear tires off at some, but I was also running really hard. So we'll see, but yeah, felt okay about it.
It's a home game for Kyle Larson. He grew up an hour and a half away from the track here. So we talk about wheel hopping and brake lockup and curb hopping. Well, that's a whole different story. Are you going to say it or am I going to say it?
You say it.
Go ahead.
You're the leader.
All right. We're back for break.
I love it.
Those goats work for the track, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They have hard cars.
Well, I don't know about that, but they do keep the hillsides manicured.
Yes, they
I
do.
thought there's only one goat here in Sonoma. One of these guys on the racetrack.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, you're talking greatest of all time.
Yeah,
I'm talking
exactly.
goats.
So you open the door. We're standing by the greatest. We're standing by the goat.
I saw a clip, and I haven't seen it
You're
in
in
many
his own
years.
skin, is what you mean.
But it was one of the first races we did at Sonoma on Fox. And I'm saying in a very measured tone, Jeff Gordon makes it look so easy. And you did. You just had a flow around this racetrack that made it look like you weren't working hard in that car.
Well, when you had some of the race cars and race teams that I had, and they just crossed all the T's, dotted the I's, and we love to attack the road course. In some ways, some days it was easy. I can tell you some were very, very difficult, but I always loved coming and being a part. This is a home game. It kind of reminds me of Kyle Larson. You know, he lives in Elk Grove, not far from here in Sonoma. I grew up in Vallejo. It was a home game. I loved coming here. I felt good about being home and around friends and family, but I loved this racetrack. It flowed for me. I don't know why exactly. But the car's pretty good too.
always loved, and I was insulted by the first one. I said, "You make it so easy. How hard can it be?" I'm thinking, if you knew how hard I was working, you wouldn't say that. I'm working my tail off. You think it looks easy?
Well, I can tell you, I had one day here that my seatbelt came undone. Leading the race.
Yeah, I remember that.
Went off track. Luckily, the caution came in. So I can tell you that day, it was hard. It was a lot of hard work that day.
Phil Mayer was a World Cup ski champion, Olympic champion, and he road raced in Trans Am Series. And we talked one day about the similarities between downhill skiing and road racing. When it's going well, everything flows. You don't get tired. It feels real good. But when you're fighting those skis, you wear yourself out in a hurry, and it's the same in the race car, right?
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
When you don't have to fight that wheel, Mike, when you turn it right and it goes right, and you turn it left, it goes left. You put on the brake and the car stops. You put on the gas, car goes. That's a great day.
How was that this morning in the Buick?
Now, what size steering wheel do you have on that Buick?
They asked me, they said, "How's that thing handled?" I said, "I think Hammond's been working on this thing."
Fox Sports gave Darrell a going-away present last night.
Beautiful.
A beautiful 56 Buick Roadmaster convertible, two-tone red and white, nailhead V8,
Oh, man.
automatic transmission, and Darrell and Stevie have been driving around in it, and you'll see some of that on Sunday.
We're going to look good going to Sonic in that, baby, I can tell you.
Right.
Starting to see some lap times change here. We see Paul Menard goes to the top of the charts, and that was passing some, but I do believe that may have been new tires and a qualifying run. Now Suarez goes to the top, so maybe that's a strategy these teams are using right now to finish out this practice.
Larry, what do they have available to them as far as tires for these two sessions?
Yeah, this does not surprise me, Mike, because even though it's almost 3 hours of practice, they have 3 sets of Goodyear sticker tires for these 3 practices. I think most of these teams stayed on the same set right here before this practice ends. A great time to make a mock qualifying run and then start on those tires the second practice. Remember this is an impound race. You can't do all the bells and whistles that you would normally do between qualifying and the race.
And Larry, I think it's interesting. Remember early on, whoa, what happened to the 6? Ran off the
downhill turn 4.
Yep.
Trouble in the
lock up there.
But early on, remember, we were 97.75 was the track record, Mark Martin, and we were just barely below the record. I think we're at a 60-odd. Look where we are right now, guys.
We only have about 2,000 more pounds of downforce.
We're down. We knocked 2 seconds off that.
And Michael McDowell back to the top. Now, we talked about this on our Fox conference call. The fellows with a lot of road race experience with the new course configuration, they're going to be fast out of the box. And there is Michael McDowell, top of the board. Boys, things are about to pick up. Michael McDowell, Daniel Suarez are fastest. Clint Boyer and Kyle Busch just headed out, presumably on sticker tires. And here they come to make a mock run. David Reagan right there with them.
So this is just their warm-up lap, which is also great information for these teams, is to know how hard you need to push leaving pit road to get the tires scuffed in, get some heat in them, get those air pressures built up to use the best of those tires once they start from the start-finish line and come back around to finish that lap.
All right, as they come around to begin their timed lap, let's check with Matt.
Now, Mike, back in 2016, Denny Hamlin almost won here at Sonoma, finishing second. But I would say today you already scored a win. You unveiled your paint scheme for later this year, paying tribute to a champion.
Yeah, DW. He was the man in the number 11 long before I was, and he does such a great job being an ambassador for the sport. His whole family, him and Michael and that whole group. So it was a simple choice for me when FedEx gave me the opportunity to design my own paint scheme. I thought it was right around the time he announced his retirement in Bristol, and I was like, this is pretty simple. Let's do the old Western Auto paint scheme. So proud of FedEx for letting me do that and honor a guy that's spent most of his life working for NASCAR.
All right, Mike.
Thanks, Matt. Riding with Kyle Busch. Whoa, that's close.
It can't be that close.
All right, let's listen.
Up. They already had a little bit of a battle coming off pit road. I think Kyle Busch is going to be real happy with Clint Boyer. Real aggressive into that braking zone. Made up some time on Clint Boyer into turn 7. He's a good road racer. Both of these guys are.
Boyer's won this race.
Those tires starting to go away a little bit now as that air pressure's built up.
First gear.
He really is good in the braking zones.
Boyer jumps to third and Kyle Busch to fourth.
They're right there, going right together.
All right, here's Regan.
Michael McDowell currently top of the board right now. Have you figured out this new configuration completely, or is there still more out there?
Yeah, there's always more out there, but the good news is the Love to Travel South Ford Mustang's been pretty fast. Drew and all the guys done a great job and made a mock run there. Car was pretty balanced. There's always a little bit more, but it only takes stepping over that line a little bit.
Well, Ryan Blaney, now Martin Truex to the top of the board.
Mike, that's 95 miles an hour around this joint. 135, 168.
Well, when you come in here and you think of favorites for this race, you got to look at Martin Truex Jr. He's done so well at this racetrack, even though not under this configuration. Obviously, their race car's working really well, and Martin loves these road courses.
Look at Buscher. I mean, I got to tell you, I give a tip of the hat to Buscher. He has qualified well. He's raced well. I just have become a big Buscher fan the last most of this year. He's just done a great job.
Chase Elliott finishing up the flyer. Last year on the 3 road courses, Chase Elliott's finishes 4th here at Sonoma, winner at Watkins Glen, and 6th on the Roval at Charlotte. This practice has come to a close. Let's show you what's coming up later on today. NASCAR Race Hub is next, and then Sonoma final practice at 5:30 Eastern Time.
Even though this practice has come to a close, you're able to complete your lap that he's on right now. So see where Chase Elliott ends up on the board after this.
His previous best lap was his 10th of 24 laps, 20th fastest. Is he going to make it to the line before we go off the air? We're going to have to update you later.